Well, it is fun to be here with you tonight. I'm going to see if I can get this mic hooked onto myself. Okay. All right. Yes. All right. Mostly it's okay. I'm going to turn this around. I'm so sorry if I'm messing up music things. Okay. There we go. One time I was getting up to speak and spilled my water all over my notes, and it was okay. I had fun. So, anyway, okay, this is kind of weird. Yeah, I'm going to do something like that. Okay, thank you. Good. Now I feel better. Good. Well, it is very fun for me to be with you guys tonight. If you've been here before, you maybe have heard my husband Brian speak. Normally, I'm at home with our two boys, and Brian is here. But when he gets home, he always debriefs me. I have to, hear everything, and who said what, and who was there, and so I hear the whole story. And so I know that for the past several weeks, whether you know it or not, you have been hearing different talks about the kingdom of God. So tonight, I want to share with you a story that was written by a man who he really knew a lot about what it meant to live in God's kingdom. The gospel writers, Luke and Mark, call him Levi, but we also know him as Matthew. And you might be familiar with the authorized biography that he wrote of Jesus' life called Matthew. And for Matthew, what Matthew wanted his people to know, he wrote the gospel for his own people, the Jews, and what he wanted them to know was that Jesus, in the kingdom of God, Jesus is life. Not just a slice of your life, not just a little compartment, a little box, not just Sunday morning. Jesus is life, all of life. And since I don't get to be here very often, and since I studied theater in school, I'm going to have a little fun tonight. I don't know if you will have as much fun as I will, but I'm going to have fun. Well, his father did name him Levi, hoping he would be a priest. He went to rabbinical school and everything. He hated it. But it was at rabbinical school that he learned he was good with numbers. And it was there that he received God's call on his life. God had called Matthew to be one of the idle rich of the world. He took a government job, became a tax collector, and the rest is history. Of course, I was very excited about this calling. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Miriam. I'm Matthew's wife. My daddy was very good at his job until he met that itinerant preacher fellow, Yeshua, Jesus. We've been hearing a lot about him, and of course, my Matthew thought it was his duty as a civil servant to go check him out. He's a good man. I'll never forget when he came home after the first time he heard him. Really, it changed our lives forever. He told me they were all sitting around on this hill, and Jesus sits down on this rock, and he says, "Blessed are the poor." Can you imagine? Of course, I'm dying laughing as Matthew was telling me this. Who knew Jesus could stand up? But then I realized Max was not laughing. Should have been my first clue. He goes on and tells me that what Jesus meant is that those people, they're not going to get this consolation prize later. It's that they have this contentment right now. This being blessed, it's a spiritual thing. Of course, I'm very, very uncomfortable with all of this. We certainly were not poor. And then Maddie tells me the rest. Blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I can tell you that I had no intention of being poor. But I like this idea of being blessed with heaven. So I say, Maddie, what's his bottom line? Miriam, he says, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Well, days go by, and Matthew is still thinking about this, and thinking, and thinking, and thinking. And my children, they ask me, Mama, what's wrong with Daddy? He's having a phase, it'll be over soon. Well, it wasn't over soon. In fact, it just got worse. Maddie kept going to hear Jesus preach, and of course, Jesus noticed him. He's a very handsome man, like Matthew. But the point is, Jesus noticed him, and then stopped by his office one day. It takes a lot of chutzpah, if you ask me. A nobody dropping by the office of a government official. They talk. Well, actually, I think that Jesus could read Matthew's mind, because he knew that we weren't any closer to being blessed by doing what we were doing. And Matthew knew that the closer he was to Jesus, the more likely he was to be blessed. He rushed into the house that afternoon and says, Miriam, we're having a party. Okay, why? I say, I need to know which kind of china to use. I've quit my job, I'm becoming a disciple, and I want everyone to know. My immediate response was to grab the children and run to my mother's. But I didn't, and I'll tell you why I did not. Because I had never seen that look in his eye before. I had never seen my husband of 20 years look more confident. I'd never seen him look more at peace. I had never seen my husband look more alive. So I say, Matthew, I think you're Meshuggah, you're crazy. But I love you, and I believe in you. So I'll stand behind you. But you better promise me that if we don't get blessed by doing this, you go back to being a tax collector. He agreed. Oh, it was quite a trial at first. We had to sell my china. And then, when Matthew wasn't selected as treasurer of the group, well, that's when I marched down there to give that Jesus a piece of my mind. And that's when I heard him teach for the first time. And I finally understood why it was that Matthew followed him. He had this, this quality about him. This way of teaching that made you want to listen to every word he said. Now, when he spoke, he used the plain old rabbinical style of teaching. He told parables, the little stories. Very simple. You hear them and you say, oh, of course. And then you realize, I have no idea what the man is talking about. Well, one day, the men were traveling close to home, and the children were in school, so I decided to go along, a rose among the thorns, if you will. As we walked, Jesus began to tell one of his parables. He said, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and hid. And from joy over it, went and sold all that he had and bought the field. I can tell that this isn't moving you in quite the same way it did for Matthew and me. Allow me to modernize it for you. There's this fellow, and he's hanging out in a field. We don't know why he's in the field. It's not important to the story. We'll move on. He's walking through the field, and he finds a treasure. Oh, and it's more incredible than he could even comprehend. It blew his mind. So he does what any man would do, of course. He covers it up and hopes nobody finds it. Heaven forbid somebody else find it. He goes down to the courthouse, finds out who owns the field, and then goes to his office to make him an offer he hopes he can't refuse. He says to the owner, I have been interested in relocating, and I noticed you have a very nice field. I'd like to make you an offer on it. And the owner of the field says, okay, what do you have to offer? And the man says, I have $5,000 cash right here for that field. And the owner of the field says, okay, I'll take it. And our friend thinks to himself, we'll see who gets it took. He hands the owner the $5,000 and starts to leave. And the owner of the field says, oh, excuse me, but what else do you have? What do you mean, what else? I thought we had a deal, the guy says. Oh, well, not yet, says the owner. What else do you have? The guy says, you mean like the $45 I have in my pocket? Yes, says the owner. It's the price of the field. The guy stops and thinks, I mean, it's a little picky. But he remembers the treasure and quickly says, so what's $45 among friends? It's like closing costs. Here you go. Hands him the $45. It's been nice doing business with you. And the owner says, let's do a little more business. What else do you have? What do you mean, what else? You took all my money. You have it all. That's okay, says the owner. What else do you have? What do you mean, like my possessions? Like my computer and iPhone? Sure, says the owner. It's the price of the field. And the man says, you're out of your mind. You can't have them. I finally got a MacBook Air to go with my iPhone 6S. And I can't live without this computer and phone. I mean, how will I Facebook? How will I access iTunes? Are you even familiar with Snapchat or Twitter? Hashtag whatever. I mean, how will I do anything without them? How will people know what I'm doing? And how will I know what they're doing? You can't have them. And the owner says, that's too bad, because it's the price of the field. Well, our friend, he sits there and he thinks. And his mind starts to wander back to that treasure he's got hidden in the field. And it occurs to him that if his devices are the only thing standing between him and that treasure, well, that computer, it's worse than an Apple IIe. And his iPhone 6S, well, it might as well be his Uncle Lester's flip phone. It's worthless. So he turns to the owner and he says, okay, I'm willing to sweeten the deal a little bit. Really like that field. You can have my phone and my computer. And the owner of the field says, what else do you have? You mean like my 4K Ultra HD TV? Sure. Look, man, you can't have my TV. I mean, how am I going to keep up with the Kardashians or watch SportsCenter? I mean, what about Netflix? I'm a season behind on The Walking Dead. How will I play Call of Duty or FIFA? What am I supposed to do at night? And while he was thinking about how empty his life would be without his television, his mind drifted back to the treasure. And it occurred to him that if the only thing standing between him and that treasure was his TV, well, it was going to be the most boring bunch of electrical wires ever created. And who would keep such a thing? So he turns to the owner and says, you really got me. I love that field. You can have my TV too. I'm so glad, says the owner. Now what else do you have? Nothing. I have nothing else left. You have it all. You have my money, you have my stuff. That's all. You're going to have to settle there. Well, says the owner, where do you live? The man says, where do I live? Where do I live? You think I'm going to trade my home for an empty field? What am I going to live in a tent? It's the price of the field. And the guy goes, not for me it isn't. He walks out the door and down the street. He gets about a block away before his mind starts to focus on the treasure. It had a vice grip on his heart. So he's leaning against a building, and he comes to the conclusion that if the only thing standing between him and that treasure is where he lives, well, it's going to be the most desolate place on the planet. And who wouldn't want to unload the most desolate place on the planet? So he rushes back to the owner of the field, and he says, oh, hello, remember me? I guess I forgot that I wanted to relocate. You can have my house too. Good, says the owner. It's the price of the field. Now what else do you have? Really, truly, you've cleaned me out. I mean, I don't know, outside of some vacation time. And the owner says, you have some vacation time? Look, please. My free time is my free time. I mean, I need it. I've earned it. I need to see my friends and my family. I need to relax. Of course, now that you have my computer and my phone and my TV, I don't know what I'm going to do. But it doesn't matter. What do you want my vacation for? How could I give them to you anyway? That's the price of the field. Well, now our friend is starting to feel a little verklempt. He's thinking, why did I go into the field? What am I doing here? And then out of that haze came the bright light, the treasure. And it occurs to him that if some vacation time is the only thing standing between him and that treasure, it's going to be the most miserable, empty time of his life. So he says to the owner, okay, you can have my free time, vacation, whatever. I'm not sure how you can take them, but they're all yours. And the owner smiles and says, now we're making some headway. What else do you have? Our friend looks at him and says, why don't you tell me? Well, how did you get here? What? My Mustang? My 2016 Ford Mustang convertible? Do you think I'm going to walk everywhere? I mean, it's brand new. You're out of your mind. You can't have it. No way. It's the price of the field. Well, the guy backs out of the office really slowly. Clearly, this man is a lunatic. Major attitude problems. But as he turns to leave, he's confronted with the treasure. And he realizes that if a car is the only thing standing between him and that treasure of all treasures, he doesn't really have anywhere to go anyway. He pulls the keys out of his pocket. Here you go. She's all yours. It's down the street. If that's what it costs for the field. Heaven forbid my girlfriend find out. And the owner of the field says, you have a girlfriend? It's the price of the field. No, 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 no! Not for me! I can't do this! I have big plans for us, and they do not include you! He looks at the owner of the field, who doesn't say anything. He doesn't have to. We know the spiel. It's the price of the field. He slams the door behind him, and he walks, and he walks, and he walks, and finally he finds himself muttering to himself on a park bench. But when his mind starts to clear, all he can see is the treasure. And he comes to the conclusion that if the only thing standing between him and that treasure is his girlfriend, biggest waste of time. And it's got no chance at all. He goes back to the owner of the field, and he says, okay, you can have my girlfriend too. You got it all now, we'll the show. But look, I've been a businessman long enough to know there's something else going on here. What's the bottom line? What are you really looking for? And with the most sincere and tender eyes, and the most gentle and compassionate and loving voice, the owner says, what about you? And the guy says, what about me? And the owner says, it's the price of the field. Well, the guy, he goes numb all over. But his mind, it goes back to the treasure. That incredible treasure. And he realizes how worthless and alone he really is. And how complete and incredible the treasure is. And he finally decides that if being his own person, if having his own plans, if doing life his own way is the only thing keeping him from that treasure, he's a schlub, a nothing. So he says to the owner, I'm not sure how we can arrange this, but you can have me too. Good! Good! The field is yours! Oh, and the treasure that you have hidden in the field that you think I'm unaware of? It's yours too. Enjoy! Right? The guy says. This day had not gone exactly as he had planned. He wasn't even sure how to feel. He starts to walk out, and he's dragging pretty low. And the previous owner of the field clears his throat. And our friend starts to shake all over. There's one more thing, the phone operator says. How surprising. He says, you know that $5,000? Yeah. I have very fond memories of that $5,045. Well, frankly, I own the cattle on 1,000 hills. Money is not a problem for me. And the previous owner hands him back the money and goes on. You know your computer and your phone? I can still hear the sweet sound effects coming from the speakers. Well, frankly, they're not fast enough for me. And I have this choir for my listening pleasure, and I have different kinds of relationships with people. Your phone and your computer, they kind of make me laugh. I can't imagine ever turning on one. And your TV, I don't think we could even find a place to plug it in my house. Your house, I'm sure it's a very nice place to live, but frankly, your whole house could fit on a shelf in the back closet of the servants' quarters in my neighborhood. Oh, and your vacation time. I don't think you're going to understand this. Your time is never an issue for me. And your Mustang? It is cool. And I'm sure it's a fun way to get around. But we have other ways to get around where I'm from. It probably just rust. He went on. Now you listen to me real closely. If I decide I want you to do something different with that $5,045, I don't want you to get all tight-fisted on me. Because you see, it isn't your money anyway. And if I decide you should do something different with your computer, or your phone, or your television, or heaven forbid, turn them off, that's going to be okay too. Because you see, they aren't yours anyway. If I decide that you should get rid of your home and live somewhere else, don't whine. It wasn't yours anyway. If I decide that you should do something worthwhile with your time, I expect you to smile and get with the program. Because you see, it isn't your time anyway. If I decide that you should let someone borrow your car and they go out and kiss a tree with it, you better not get any ideas about kissing them. Because you see, it isn't your car anyway. If I decide that your girlfriend is not the right person for you to spend your life with, you're going to have to let her go and trust me. Because you see, she isn't yours anyway. Let's say I decide 20 years from now to take your wife and your kids home to be with me. That's going to be okay too, and you're going to have to accept that. Because they're not yours anyway. Listen, 20 years from now, you get in an accident and you're paralyzed from the neck down and you spend the rest of your life in an iron lung, it's going to be okay. Because you are mine. You gave yourself to me. And I give you treasure. You belong to me. I am the one who will take care of you. Don't you see what happened? He began to pry his hands loose of the things of the world. As long as his hands were filled with the things of the world, he had no chance of ever grasping the things of eternity, the treasure. For the first time in his life, he was free. He was really poor in spirit. He had only one place to go. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and hid. And from joy over it, went and sold all that he had and bought the field. That, my friends, was the parable that Jesus told that day. And I'll never forget it, because it answered all my questions. And I finally knew what it meant. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. You may have picked up on this, but I could really identify with that man who found the treasure. As the wife of a businessman, I want you to know it was a very sweet deal. And that treasure in the field, it's more incredible, more amazing than you could ever imagine. You think you know incredible? You think you know amazing? No, you don't. Try harder. It's better than that. You're not even close. The treasure? Oh, it's still available today. And the price, it's just right. If you're not holding on too tightly. Let me pray for us. Father in heaven, I'm grateful that you offer to us freely, and have done everything for us, everything that's necessary for us to embrace the treasure. Jesus, thank you that you came for us. Thank you that you made a way for us to be a part of the kingdom of heaven. Lord, would you show us what keeps us from you. Show us what keeps us from you. May we embrace the treasure you offer. Thank you that it's not hidden, but it's evident. And may we freely, Lord, give our lives to you, that we might receive the extravagant gifts that you long to lavish on us. Amen.